impact men's leadership behavior. That means when you put up a female role model, men doesn't feel threatened at all. Yeah, but the female got encouraged. All right, the gender leadership gap disappeared when women were exposed to a female role model. Female speakers who spoke in front of an image of Hillary Clinton increased their speech time by 24%. And those who spoke in front of an image of Angela Merkel increased their speech time by 49% compared to the average of the control condition. When women spoke in front of female role models, their speeches were rated higher in quality, increasing from 2.6 to 3 on a 5-point scale, and they were more positively perceived their own performance. Women spoke less than men in both the control condition when a Bill Clinton or no picture was present. Women spoke for 260 seconds while men spoke for 236 seconds on average. There was no effect of female or male role models on male participants' speech length or quality. All right? So this is the conclusion, but I have another conclusion. It disapprove some people saying that when you see a lady boss or you know, a woman in a higher position, you get intimidated. So this actually does not show in this study. So, ladies and gentlemen, so let's see where we are now, where we are in Malaysia. Yeah, where are we? What is our position in this country? Okay, according to Forbes, this is worldwide. While close to 52% professional jobs are held by women, we are underrepresented in leadership roles. Only 14.6% of executive officers, 8.1% of top earners, and 4.6% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. Okay. Okay, this is Malaysian scenario. Okay, this is what happens in Malaysia. Women, okay, this is in the corporate sector. Okay, in the corporate sector, women in director position, we have only 15.2%. This is a survey in the top 500 listed companies on the Bursa Malaysia, and then women held 26.2% of top management positions. This is across all public listed corporations. Well, there's only 5% CEOs, okay? Members of board of directors in finance ministry incorporated companies, there are only 15% women, 15. Okay, of course we know that there are women in high positions like our ex-governor of Bank Negara, our chairperson of Securities Commission, the CEO of AAGX, for example, or SME Corporation, Dato' Hafsa, yeah, and others, you know. But those positions, those women, it remain as an exception, and not as a norm in Malaysian situation. This is the truth. And to make things worse, there's another thing that we call, oh no, sorry. No, I want to go to the last slide. That seems like. Yeah, okay. Gender pay gap. There is a gap. All right. According to the salaries and wages report by our Department of Statistics, you know, women actually earn about 20% less than their male counterpart. You know, if they were employed in the same position, this is the study. the result of the study shows that women earn 20% less. So this makes things worse for women. Okay? Okay, now I want to move on to education. Okay. What is this? I want to go to education. Okay, education. Okay. This, I have to say that remarkable achievement in tertiary education, where women have shattered the glass ceiling in Malaysia. This is a very, very remarkable achievement of the girls of Malaysia today. Okay. If you look at the university enrollment, in the 1980s, the men outnumbered the women by 25%. There were 25% more men than women in the university in the 1980s. But now, the enrollment is 63% female. This is today's scenario. And if you look at the number of graduates, you know, female is in 2015 alone, the study was based at the end of 2015, female numbers is about more or less 50,000 more in terms of number than men. So some people have argued that, you know, the high enrollment is due to the simple fact that there are more women nowadays compared to men in Malaysia. But I tell you what, data, however, contradicted this. According to the Department of Statistics, as of 2016, Malaysia's gender ratio is 107 males to every 100 female. There are more men. This is Department of Statistics 2016. So people use this as an excuse, arguing that is why there are more female. And some people also use this excuse to practice polygamy. There are more women. So this is the thing. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, there are about 50,000 more female than male in 2015 alone, graduates from 2015 alone. You can imagine the existing disparity formed over the past decade. So it's huge. Okay. Unfortunately, significant gains by women in tertiary education have not translated into better labour market outcomes. So this is what our labour market looks like. Okay, now, in 2015, our women's labour force participation, the rate was 54.1%, out of the total 9.9 million potential women labour force. Okay? Now, this leaves us with a question. Where have the women gone to? And where are they now in our society? Because I mentioned there are so many graduates, but what happened to them? Okay, so one interesting study by the World Bank found a pattern that suggested Malaysian women older than the age of 26, that's too young, are more sensitive to life cycle transition as compared to other countries in the world. Malaysian women also retire earlier than their male counterparts, okay? Malaysian women who leave the workforce after the age of 26 will never return. This is the syndrome they call as a single peak profile, because they peak in their work, they leave the job once they have family commitment or whatever reason, and then they never come back. This is in contrast to other countries in Asia like Japan and South Korea, where they have double peak profile, which means there is a recovery in labour force participation after women hit the age of 35. They may leave at the age of 26, but after the family is sort of stable, the children are a bit older, then they come back to the labour force. Okay? So in Malaysia, this is another finding from World Bank as well, 67% women who are not in not labor as labor. 7% of women cited care and other family and personal responsibilities as the reason for not being in the labor force, versus only 2% of women of men. That means only 2% of women who leave the labor force cited that they leave the profession because of family commitment. So there are not many men who's willing to sacrifice their profession as compared to women. If you do find them, they are a rare breed, rare species. Okay, this happened to my husband. When I had to go to the UK to pursue my master's degree, I brought along a 10-month-old baby, and then he had to quit his job from a Standard Chartered bank, which is a very established bank, a very good position. So my mom was saying, no, you are very young, you cannot be separated because family is very important. And I need all the moral boost that I could ask for to do my master's degree in a foreign country. So he left his job and came over, became a full-time house husband, and we had another child born there while I was doing my master's degree. So it's not impossible. Okay. Now, let's see, how are we in politics? How is women participation in politics? A subject that I like. Okay. So I have to point over there actually. Okay, but I'm not going to talk long on this, okay? Okay, in politics, today, as you know, women comprise 1/2 of the registered voters and are active in politics. However, instead of being political leaders themselves, a majority of women have continued to be what we call as grassroots party workers. They work at the bottom tier of the hierarchy in politics, and there's so many of them out there. They work hard, really hard, that I know for a fact. Okay, now gender inequality, unequal environment, it still persists in this sphere, in this political sphere, as indicated by extremely low percentage of women at all levels of political office. Okay, now Malaysia, I think I missed something there. Okay, actually, Malaysia ranks number 156 out of 189 countries in terms of number of representatives in the national parliament. Okay, 156 out of 189. That's quite low because we have only 10.4% women in the parliamentary seat, which is 23 seats out of 222 seats. Okay, this is now. I was in parliament in 2004 until 2008. At that time, the percentage was 10.1%. So there's not much improvement. 10.1 to 10.4. So, but nevertheless, I was proud to be in the top 10%, right? Okay. The state assembly, we have two seats, which is parliament for the national level, and for the state we call state assembly. So in the state assembly is also very low, which is 10.8%. So we have 505 state seats, only occupied by 55 seats by women. So these two are through election process. But what about the seats which is through appointment? All right, it's not very good either. Even though we hit the 30% target that we are, under the Women Declaration in Beijing. Remember, we want the 30%. So we hit the 30%. But it's not a representative of the community in the local authority. So we have about we are only given limited appointments to sit as local authority council members. We have only 362 out of 2,567 positions in the local authorities in Malaysia. So that is where we are now, ladies. Okay? You see this? So I took this photo for my talk a few years ago. So if I could recall correctly, this is in one of the conference of parliament sitting where the women representative had no choice but to bring the little baby in the conference. This is, I don't know, it's quite sad to look at this, okay? So, nevertheless, bravo to the woman, okay? So let's see. My next topic will be on empowering women for socio-economic benefits, okay? Now, the global agenda for vitality and sustainable development will be achieved by fully leveraging the leadership potential and economic participation of women. Now, this is a program by the School of Business of University Saskatchewan, Empowering Women Leaders Program. This is just one example. There are many schools that have come up with a similar program to empower women, especially in economy. Okay. Now, there's a study by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, on gender inequality that they found that increasing the share of household income controlled by women, okay, changes spending in ways that benefit children and family as a whole. This study also found that increasing women and girls' education contributes to a higher economic growth for about 50% in OECD countries over the past 50 years. Okay. Now, the World Bank estimated, this is on Malaysia, yeah, that the 2.3 million women missing in action from the workforce can leapfrog, yeah, lompat katak lah in bahasa Melayu, our income per capita by 23%. Now, this absent women workforce translated to about $2,300 per capita, which will enable an overnight achievement of the high income status for Malaysia. This is what we aspire to achieve. But I know it cannot happen overnight. And do you have the jobs available for them, for the 2.3 million, you know, if you want to do it in a short span? But what I'm saying is that the contribution of women, if you put them full force, you know, this could actually contribute to our country aspiration to become a high status country. Now, okay. Apart from formal sector, women are seen to be prospering in the more informal sector, with more flexibility in working hours, like business through social media. The online business is dominated by women, according to this study. But I know there are more and more men also doing online business, but sometimes I don't know, this is based on my observation, the small scale businesses like homemade products, you know, those are dominated by women. Okay, now I love this one, the next one. This is a study. Working mothers produce better sons and daughters. When I read this is a study by Harvard Business School. Okay, when I read this, I mean, there's a total relief. Relief. Something just came out of my chest. You know why? Because I'm a woman. I'm a mother, and there's always a guilty feeling in me. Guilty feeling in me for being very busy. So there's always this feeling which is, you know, in the woman. So you cannot say no to this. You know, when I was an MP in 2004, my youngest daughter, my number 5, she was hardly 4 years old. And number 4 was 3 years older. Number 3 was 3 years older, and then number 2 was 3 years older also, and number 1 is 2 years older than number 2. So they were so small. I remember debating in Parliament. There was a bill on domestic helpers, I think, something like that. So I stood up and talked. I said, this is the problem in our country, because we don't have much of facilities that could facilitate you in the work environment. So, I said, my little girl, the first patriotic song that she sang in the house when she was hardly 4 was the national anthem for Indonesia. Negaraku merah, darahku putih, tulangku. That is the lyrics from Indonesian national anthem. So she didn't know Negaraku then, because she was actually 80% of her time was spent with the maid. So much so that the maid, my Indonesian maid, went with her, virtually sat with her in the classroom, in the childcare center. It's not a childcare center, it was the tadika, the kindergarten, and learn a word or two of English. So this is the thing. But when this study came out, I feel so nice. A comprehensive study of 50,000 adults from 25 different nations by the Harvard Business School inferred an interesting result, contrary to popular and traditional beliefs, which is the study found that growing up with a working mother improves future career prospect for their children. Okay, maybe they are inspired by their mother. Okay, now this study found that daughters of working mothers show better performance in the workplace. However, the study found no effect to their sons' performance in the workplace, but the sons do better in domestic duties. So it's beautiful. You have a balance. Okay? So this is I'm not just saying it, this is by Harvard Business School. Okay? Now that leaves us to this question. How to empower women? Okay, we know that not all barriers facing women can be attributed to the glass ceiling imposed by the traditional workplace. Women often hold themselves back from advancement with self-imposed barriers. All right? So what holds a woman back? This is a study by one lecturer from Turkey who has migrated to US. I can't remember her name. So the number 1 is a fear of failure. Okay, we sometimes women, we overthink. We always overthink. What happened if this, Okay, now family matters. And the thirdly is inferiority complex. This is the thing that I don't need to elaborate. I think the women, you understand about this. Your fear of failure. Men, they know their personal worth is not determined by professional failures. But young women, especially young women, often fear that workplace missteps, will cost them their job, reputation, and success. So they overthink. Okay, family matters. Some women fear that employers will view them as vulnerable, as inefficient or unmotivated if they decided to start a family. Okay? Now, the other thing is on inferiority complex. Some women still believe that men are stronger leaders, have better ideas, or are more equipped to achieve success. This is your self-imposed barriers. Okay? Now, I think I made some of the slide, Made some of the slide. Oh, no. There are more slide like this. There are more slide actually. Maybe... Sorry, I think there's some slides missing. It's okay. Okay, sorry for the short break. Okay, now, how to propel yourself? Okay. Now, this is a very familiar quote among women. Very familiar quote. Whatever women do, they must do twice as well as men